Hey everyone, this is Dan Gorgone from Treehouse, and I'm here with
Elizabeth Fox from Treehouse Support.
Thanks for joining us here on this week's live stream at Treehouse. We're going to talk social media strategy, and I'm super excited that you're here.
Me too.
Joining us.
Me too.
So we have a lot to cover, but we have a helpful presentation to take us through. Social media is one of those things that if you are involved with technology, web design, building apps, or working for any of those companies that are involved with it as well, well, really, social media, you can be involved with any business these days. And social media is going to be an important part of your marketing and business strategy. But before we get ahead of ourselves, social media, it's the quickest form of marketing and content creation today. If you're not using it, how'd you get on YouTube? You are using it. This is social media. Social media, one of the benefits is that it provides closer connections to customers as well as prospective customers. It provides you with the ability to stay current with up-to-the-second updates, and social media content, from the posts to videos to pictures to anything else that goes out there, is super easy to share, and it leads to great amplification of the content that you're creating. Means that you can get anywhere, you can go viral, and that's not necessarily a goal that everyone should strive for. It's just one of those things that happens. But when you get down to the fundamentals of social media, there are certain goals that you want to have in mind. So with today's presentation, we have an agenda. First, we're going to cover the top current social media platforms, just kind of give you a lay of the land so that you are all familiar with the top platforms that you should be cognizant of and perhaps focusing on with your efforts. We'll talk about some goals that individuals and companies alike should be considering, and at least should be setting for yourselves when you're using social media. A couple of the things that may be results of your social media efforts. We'll talk about increasing followers and some of the other stats, and ensuring that your content gets shared through social media, how you can ensure that that happens. And in the end, you have to know if this stuff is working. So we'll talk about some of the strategies that you can employ with social media today. But first, let's talk about the platforms that are out there today.
The big three in social media. So we, of course, have Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Most, if not all of you who are watching, are at least remotely familiar with those three social media platforms. Now, Facebook has 1.15 billion total users, 750 million mobile users. Twitter, 500 million total users, 280 million monthly active users. Google Plus has 500 million total users with 340 million active users. And I think by these numbers, it's easy to assess that social media is prevalent and it's being used even by users and purchasers and companies. And then, of course, there's 4 more social media. There is LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Different ones for different audiences, others focusing on different mediums such as YouTube with video, Pinterest with images, largely linking products, linking services, linking inspiration. Instagram, obviously, with images and now videos as well. It's a great opportunity to showcase projects, work, and just pictures if you enjoy taking pictures. LinkedIn's great for connecting with other creative professionals and with other employers as well. So let's see. Worldwide social media, now 4.2 billion access social media using mobile devices. That is a huge number. 46%, over almost half of users research purchases on social media. And it generates 2 times the marketing leads as events, mail, and PPC.
Pay-per-click. Right.
Pay-per-click. Thank you.
I mean, these are a whole bunch of numbers that we're throwing at you. And normally I wouldn't start the presentation, so number heavy. But the idea is that the stats cannot lie. Everyone is on social media, so to speak. But everyone is on social media. And they're not just on social media. They're talking to each other. They're talking to companies. Companies are talking to them. And results are happening. So social media works. But the lesson is, and what we're trying to get to with this presentation, how can you make it work for you?
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the goals that come up for different people using social media. And you can apply these to yourself personally, as well as, if it's for personal interests or for business interests. It could be you're a freelancer or you're working for a company and you're heading up their social media efforts. So one of the first goals to consider are linked to communication. Communication via social media is just part of what makes it what it is. And we'll talk about content marketing. We'll talk about what direct interaction is like and why it's so important with social media. Influence is another goal that you can consider with social media. Becoming a source of relevant content, or sometimes the source of content, depending on who you are and what industry you're in. Influence can be a goal. And when we talk influence, it doesn't necessarily have to be, like Jedi-like influence. You're just one of the many voices in the crowd that helps tell the story about something. Another goal is to help establish some competitive goals, some competition between yourself and other entities out there, whether they're other people vying for the same business that you're trying to grab, or it could be competition, or it could be other people trying to share the same content. And in many ways, competition is what has really fueled social media and some of the advances in it. But we'll talk about establishing a reputation using social media and some of the ways that you can monitor and learn how to outdo some of your competitors out there. And lastly, business goals. You can't deny that one of the reasons to get involved with social media is to increase sales or increase revenue, or sometimes it's social metrics like followers and likes and things like that. And while those things all add up to engagement, you have to understand how to measure all that stuff and understand some of the tools that you can use to monitor your efforts, monitor the performance, and figure out how you can improve what you're doing from day to day, month to month, and year to year. So one of the first goals that we mentioned there was communicating via social media. And really, to understand social media, we suggest that you start using it. You do have to get on those platforms and check them out if you haven't already. But you should also understand that not all platforms are the same. They offer some of the same sort of functions from platform to platform, but the benefits, the expectations, and the way that people deliver things can be vastly different. So it's important to jump onto those platforms and start using them, start listening and see what people are sharing, what they're posting, and get a feel for what people in your industry are talking about, and perhaps who is known for offering the best content. Now, for example, on this slide, I have a screenshot from Twitter, and it's a search for front-end frameworks. Now, the search tool has become much more important on Twitter with the advent of hashtags, and we'll talk about that later. But being able to search these platforms to find the content that you're looking for is incredibly valuable, because people want to be connected to and they want to follow people who have the information that they need, whether it's something they want to read, something they want to learn, or it could be product information. How do I buy something? How do I become the first to get this sort of thing? And so a Twitter search will give you not just posts with certain keywords and phrases in it, but it can also give you results for people, some of the profiles that are on Twitter talking about those things or who are known for those things. Now, one of the things you may have heard about in social media, one of the trends is content marketing. And content marketing, content, it sort of encapsulates almost everything that could be on a website or what you share on social media. It's talking about the text, the pictures, the video, audio files, podcasts, downloadable ebooks and whatnot. I mean, it's everything. But being able to figure out what type of content your followers, your customers, your prospective clients would want, that's something that you have to understand before you start generating all this content and just throwing it out there and hoping that it makes some sort of connection. So who are you? What do you do? What do you value? Answering these sorts of questions and doing this self-assessment will give you a much better idea, not just about how to move forward, but what content should you create? What should be the tone of that content? What different types of content? And when you go out to these different platforms, you want to make sure you establish a consistent presence across various platforms. And it's not just the name that you use or the handle, but also the branding. It could be, the logo that you use for your logo, avatar, whatever you want to call it. Make sure that the messaging is the same. Make sure the tone is the same so that people visit you on Facebook or Pinterest or Google Plus or wherever, they know just by reading your posts and looking at your profile that you are you and you're not perhaps someone trying to steal your traffic or deceive people. Content marketing, one of the other trends that's very popular right now is, the push is to have it be less marketing-y. It's less one-directional, less, you want this, and we have this, so you buy this, and it's very pushy, and it's a very, it's very aggressive, and to educate and help the people who are out there, the people who may be in search of what you have to offer, is one of the best strategies that I think we can recommend. Mm-hmm. And I know that you know that from being in support to, when you have customers that are looking for help, they need assistance, or they just need a helping hand. Sometimes they just need a pat on the back, hashtag high five, mm-hmm. like you've tweeted many times. Yeah. You want to celebrate what your followers and what your clients and our students are doing. Mm-hmm. So adopting that sort of that tone when you're creating content and you're pushing out updates, your customers and clients will be better off based on what you're doing. They'll be better informed based on the content you create. And don't be afraid to go beyond just the text updates. I mean, words, pictures, video, quotations, screenshots, anything with value that people will appreciate and will help answer a question or give them a better idea of what you're all about and what you have to offer. Think about some of the ways that you vet out different products or services or different stores that you might be interested in. What sort of information would you look for, and what would make the difference? Well, think about that. Put yourself in your customer's shoes and think about creating content like that. And lastly, make sure that if you're trying to actually convert people, going back to business terms now, if you want to make a conversion, you got to bring them back to your website. So don't just think that getting a retweet or a +1 or a like is that's a huge success. Well, it's nice that you get engagement like that on social media, but you've got to bring them back to your website. Whether it's to make a sale or to get in touch with this person or have them download something or join your newsletter, you're going to bring them back to your website because that's where the action happens. That's where the conversions will happen. And so one thing before I know you take over, I found a really nice example of some personal branding that's happening. And Lynette Young has a huge following on Google+, and she's also, she's on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. But this is a nice example of someone adding a little branding to their profile page. And you can see that there's a lot of purple here. Well, that's by design. Purple is definitely Lynette's color, and it's part of her branding. But there's 10 other bullets right underneath there, speaking specifically about who she is and what she loves. And it's not just digital media analyst and published author. It's gamer and geek, Doctor Who obsessed, shoe hoarder. It's all these, things about her personally, professionally. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice touch.
All things that contribute to her social media identity as well, just making her a bit more human and approachable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it leads to a nice introduction that can help you engage with the people out there.
Yeah, so speaking of engaging, now communicating via social media is very important. Now we mentioned that in order to, communication is one of the most important things with social media. And engaging people in real world conversations is equally as important. It can't be a one-way street. So, for example, if you have something that's retweeted, as Dan said, that's great. But that doesn't mean that any real data, numbers, or anything has really been pushed. So it's good to engage people over social media. Now, after you've started the conversation, listen to what people say, reply to what they're saying, and help them along the way. So if somebody asks you about a specific tweet, it's great to send them a response and maybe even link them to something related, to some content that you're pushing. Now, don't wait for people to find you. Search for them. Now, that is very important. Don't wait for problems to arise. Seek out people who need help and help them using your own expertise, experience, connections, etc. And for example, on this slide, this is from Twitter. This is from Greg Bussey. Is that his last name? Busey?
Greg Angry was more like it.
Yeah,
from,
Greg
from this
Angry.
tweet.
Now he's angry. He invokes the name of a competitor. He's reaching out to JetBlue because he wants to use JetBlue. Now the company responds very quickly, giving him details and a link with more info. And after another reply where he's grateful and he thanks them, JetBlue responds with more information, more help. Now as a result, there's positive interaction. The customer's happy overall, even though the initial experience was not so pleasant. And others might see this and then decide that the company is worth using and even contacting in the future. And so let's look at a more detailed example. So communicating and monitoring tools. Regularly visit each platform via web, mobile apps. Now, this is also essential to understanding how social media works, because you get a feel for how the actual platforms work and operate. Using and understanding how each notification system works is essential to connecting to customers, clients, competitors, so on and so forth. Some of these tools are really essential, such as TweetDeck, which is great for an individual, and Hootsuite. Hootsuite's great for a company. You can set up feeds, search for relevant terms like company names, product names, hashtags, and then you can manage who responds to which post and who's keeping on the conversation. Now, Buffer app is great for scheduling posts as well. It's great for mobile devices.
And I know that one example that we discussed before this presentation, we wanted to give people an idea of what it was like to monitor social media chatter that was coming in, and you brought this one to the table because we use Hootsuite here at Treehouse.
Yeah, we do, and Hootsuite's a fabulous platform for companies. Now, this example came in, I believe, last week. Jess Creatives sends us a tweet. She says that she is excited to start learning with us. Here's Hootsuite. Now, through Hootsuite's interface, we went in and we selected that tweet, started to reply. You can schedule the tweet if you want to. You can send it right away, the reply. And then we ended up responding to her saying, welcome to the team. We're so excited to have you. High five. That sort of engagement. Yeah.
And so a platform like Hootsuite is really valuable in that way. And in fact, I've been using Hootsuite as well, just to monitor some of the chatter about the courses that I teach, and I have a screenshot later about that. But it's just a little bit more helpful, or it can be just a little bit more helpful, and actually be incredibly helpful for companies that have thousands of followers, that get hundreds or thousands of mentions or retweets or engagement every single day. So if you're a larger company, hopefully you're using a tool by now, but if you're not, Hootsuite is one that we recommend, and there's some more that we'll mention a little further on.
Yeah.
But once whether you've got thousands of followers and millions of followers, or even just starting out for the first time, social media influence is one of those aspects of being involved that you should consider. You should think about it. Your goal may not be to be the thought leader of some sort of particular hashtag or topic in your industry. And that's fine because people use social media in many different ways. Many of them are followers and they just want to keep themselves up to date. And that's what social media is fantastic for that. And we recommend it to everyone out there, especially our students who are learning about all these topics at Treehouse. Other people like to use social media and curate some of the great things that they find. They'll grab different pieces of content from blogs or different platforms or wherever and push them all out and share them again with whatever audience they have. And by doing that, they become a source of information. They may not have created it, but there are so many content creators, curators, I should say, out there, and they're incredibly valuable to keep the social media ecosystem kind of going, right?
Absolutely.
But the people with real influence are the ones that get followed, their stuff gets shared, and a lot of the times this stuff leads to those conversions that we talked about, where they become clients, they make sales, and the influence helps them raise their profile on social media and within their industry. So talking about influence, one of the important parts of creating that influence is to create and or share relevant quality content. So what I like to say is that you are what you create. What you put out there is what you get known for. That's what you become known for. So if you want to be known for web design, but all you're sharing are really great cupcake recipes, well, you're going to get known as cupcake recipe guy or gal, right? But focus on what you want to focus on. Share that stuff. So focus on the needs of your customers, your partners, of the industry, and stick to that focus. But you're also what you share. So we talked about content curators. Focus on the interests and what your followers want. But at the same time, you have to remain true to what interests you. So don't think that just by becoming a curator or a source of information that's going to be a great benefit to you if you don't care at all about that stuff. Social media can be a very, very personal sort of mission for a lot of people where they want to create something really special to them and put it out there. And by doing that, they'll become known for it, but it's like sharing a piece of themselves, sharing what they're truly about. So stick to that. Stick to what you're truly about. Make your content the best it can be. Don't go halfway and just kind of throw stuff out there because you have some sort of automated plugin that you can put on your blog, and every time you publish a post, just kind of it spits it out there onto Twitter. Well, that's maybe the least you could do. Or maybe the least you can do is nothing, right? But that's one step above. Take it another step further. Provide a custom tweet, for each post that you provide. Understand the needs and the limitations of each platform. And when you're pushing stuff out there, don't just spread out the same exact stuff on every single platform, because you may have followers that follow you on every platform, and they're going to get tired of seeing the same thing. So figure out how to share your content on the right platforms with the right keywords and hashtags and everything else. And of course, hashtags are the clickable terms that exist. They existed first on Twitter. Now they're available on Google+. I think
Facebook as well.
Also has them.
Yeah, and I believe also Instagram too.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit easier way to find connected content. And so by using hashtags, you can increase the number of eyeballs that see your stuff. Instagram, it's particularly good for that because it's very easy to click on that stuff. Now, gaining followers and building a community. You may have heard these terms or these phrases, but they are not the same thing. Gaining followers is important because numbers are important. But social media should not be a scoreboard. It should not be all about, I got more followers than you and I got more followers than them, and therefore I'm doing better in social media than them. Well, that's not true at all. It may not be true at all, especially if you value numbers over the quality of the stuff that you're putting out. Now, regular quality content, it creates expectations, great expectations, because when you get known for putting stuff out that is really awesome, it is going to get shared. and people are going to come back and they're going to want more awesome stuff. And so organizations that want to regularly pump out content and quality content at that, they need time to prepare, not just to write or prepare whatever it is, but they need to schedule, they need to organize. So using a content calendar is something that we recommend, and maybe it's as easy as on Google Drive going into the calendar and putting in something for every Tuesday, or
even going into Hootsuite, which has that capability. And the same with TweetDeck. You can go into the calendars and start scheduling for different days, like every Tuesday you have a new blog post or something like that.
So not only does it create an expectation for your audience, but it creates an expectation internally where your team has to come up with great content all the time, and it can lead to all kinds of really great stuff that you create. Promote your presence on your website, your email, your other marketing, print marketing, wherever else you do marketing. Let people know that you are on Twitter or on Facebook. They may not know. They may have no idea. But if you are actively using those platforms and you have something important to share, let people know. And so you'll see on plenty of websites, in the header or the footer or somewhere in there, the little social media logos. That's one way that you can do that. If you have an email newsletter, you can add it there. Follow us on Twitter. And you may find that you may have members of your audience that might follow you. They might be subscribed to your email newsletter. But by seeing you on Twitter, they may say, oh, this is great because I live on Twitter and I want to follow you on Twitter.
It's more convenient.
And so, give your audience choices. Let them find you in all these different places, and you'll understand how you can deliver value in each specific place. And go to where your customers are. So if that means going beyond the big seven, as we talked about, find some different platforms. There are plenty of niche social media platforms out there where people are talking about specific content that most people just don't care about on Facebook or Twitter. Go to groups, forums especially. We talked about car lovers. Like, there's plenty of car lovers that jump onto forums because they are specifically for muscle cars, or they're specifically for hybrid vehicles, or
any car
whatever.
type, yeah.
And they're very supportive of each other because they understand the needs of each other. And so if you can get onto a forum and just look around and see the questions that people ask about, even if it's not your product per se, but products like yours or companies like yours or other things within your industry, you can gain a really great understanding of what people are talking about, but also what they need and what they expect out of the different content that they find online. So understanding influence, if we kind of break this all down, follow your industry. We talked about a lot of the different ways we can do this. The platforms they use, the groups that exist. Follow the influencers. There are definitely going to be key people in those industries, on those different platforms, and they may not be the same people from platform to platform. So whether they're writers or speakers or companies themselves or blogs, celebrities, they can be very important to follow. And it's, to follow them is just one click, most of the time. And then you are on top of what they're saying. But also, who did they follow? And this is something that I've found is very unique to Twitter. If you go to the profile page for someone that you consider to be a real thought leader, a great influencer, a great source of content, you might see that, they've got 200,000 followers and they're very popular. But if you look at who they're following, maybe they're following 300 people. Maybe they're following 200,000 people. Who knows?
Or as little as 5.
You're right. But no matter who it is, or especially if it's a lower number, you can click on that and you can see who they're following. And that's all. To me, it's always really insightful to know that this guru of web design believes that these people specifically are really important to this person's experience on social media. Maybe the information that they gather or the new trends. So they are often good sources of information for you as well. And of course, recognize the relevant topics, the keywords, the hashtags. Do lots of searches. Look at the results of all these different searches and types of results. Whether it's content, whether it's posts, whether it's people or websites or companies, look for patterns within these results, and you'll see where some of the best influencers are, the best content creators, and sometimes curators are, and you'll find great sources of inspiration and information, as you move forward.
Now, competition on social media. Now, this could go back to monitoring or checking out your peers, checking out the competition. One of the first things to do to be ahead of the game, as far as that's concerned, is the quality of content that you put out and interaction. We can't stress this enough, how important this is. Be a source of relevant information on topics, products, etc., and be consistent. Remain helpful, professional, and positive. Even if somebody is angry and upset, like that example we showed before, it's always pertinent to be positive and professional and helpful. Nothing ruins an experience like an unpleasant experience.
Yes.
And maintain a positive reputation through the good and the bad. So even with, one day someone may be telling you how much they love your product, they love your web design, they love the cupcake recipe that you just reposted. And then the next week someone may be completely upset. They're allergic to gluten. Always remain positive and, be helpful, and that will help you maintain a positive reputation in the social media community and in the professional community.
And the JetBlue example that we cited earlier, that guy, I didn't review all of his tweets, but it's possible that the day before he was praising JetBlue for how awesome they are. But then a problem comes up and they handled it really well.
Yeah, they did. Now, monitor your competition and competitive keywords, and that can just be as simple as knowing where they are as far as social media is concerned, knowing what platforms they're on. Well, maybe you want to be on that platform, or maybe they're not on Pinterest. Maybe you want to create a unique experience for your customers or for your clientele on Pinterest. Look for opportunities to help whenever possible. Back to that JetBlue example. He mentioned, I believe it was Delta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mentioned Delta. They could have easily just intervened and swooped him up, said, hey, we have a flight. Well, in this particular instance, JetBlue saved the day, but, in your case, it might be different. Look for opportunities and help whenever possible. And set up social feeds on keywords and phrases. So like the front-end developer, was that it? Yeah, the front-end keyword example that we showed earlier, that's a good way of keeping track of keywords and phrases that are interesting to you or that are of interest to you.
And one example of that is on Hootsuite. I have a couple of searches that are set up here. If you look at this, you'll see my tab of Treehouse stuff. And it's, anytime I get mentioned on Twitter, if they use @DanGorgone and they reply to me or they mention me, I can see that. That's kind of one of the, the first level of mentions and things that you would see. But I also do a search for content that might be about some of the other courses that I've taught. So I've taught a course about careers, and I've taught a course about usability, and I've taught some other business courses. So I just did a search, set up a search here, Treehouse Careers, Treehouse Usability, Treehouse Business. And I have feeds set up for each one. And I can see that, and this was from yesterday, I can see that there are actually some very relevant tweets here about, say, this guy Cliff, who's unlocked a whole bunch of different business courses that I'm involved with. I teach with Passan. But also there have been a couple of direct mentions of me asking for feedback, and then one about careers, the careers course that I taught that didn't mention me, but it said how great it was. So I was very happy to see that. That was fantastic.
Yay.
But those are also opportunities where there could be problems that come up.
Yeah.
Because what if Delta set up a feed where it was JetBlue, angry, something like that.
Or even as simple as mentioning the name Delta without mentioning Delta. Like in this case, careers course.
Right.
So what if that happened?
And there's nothing wrong with doing things like checking out competitor websites or monitoring social media chatter about competitors. So there's nothing wrong with that, because they're probably doing that anyway, looking for you in your company. But really, you're looking for opportunities, and you're looking for trends, and you never know, what will happen next on social media, and where different interactions may lead. They have, there have been some very, very positive and very, very negative interactions on social media.
Yeah.
If you've been monitoring that at all. So talking about business, we talked about competition, but let's talk about business. Because doing business, down to brass tacks, exactly. Doing business on social media, trying to accomplish business goals, that's something that companies have been trying to figure out from the beginning. Once they figured out that, hey, this social media thing is really taking off. Well, you can't do anything really effective unless you've defined some goals for yourself. It's just like going into business without social media, without the internet or the World Wide Web. You got to have goals. It's like, why are you there? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? We have to do the same thing with social media. So what do you want to accomplish? Is it more clients, more sales, subscribers? It has to be tied into what your customers and your prospective clients need. Are they looking for services? Are they looking for products? Is it content they want? Do they want to download your latest album if you're a band? Or do they want to just view your latest photographs? Or do they want to purchase t-shirts that you designed? Or whatever it is. Connect their needs to what you're trying to accomplish. And man, if you can accomplish both, I mean, you're doing really well.
You're a maverick.
But creating content on social channels that benefit users, they will lead to business success. Content like, promoting different products that you have coming up, going beyond the, hey, this is available now, but, maybe like 10 reasons why this new service that we have is helpful for web designers or, something else in particular. Be specific and speak to specific people's needs. And, they will engage with this content. They'll read it, they'll share it, which is great. And it'll bring more traffic to your site because you have to drive people to your site to accomplish these goals. Again, this is where the conversions happen, the signups, the sales, what have you. So set up channels to achieve this business success. Once again, promote your content and products and your other value on your social channels. Let people know. Don't just go straight through plain old marketing channels. Figure out what people want to see on social and what information is helpful to them. And then build some landing pages, that go along with this. When you send out tweets or even in your email campaigns as well, because this is something where they can both intersect. You can send people to specific landing pages that you've set up in advance of these, links or sections on emails or within these tweets that are parts of a bigger campaign. And you'll know by using specific links with codes built in that when people reach this landing page, they've reached it because they clicked on something specific in a specific campaign with specific language. And then you can match things up. The branding, the messaging, the logo, and make sure that users have a consistent experience when whether they're reading it from it could be a display ad, or it could be an email, or it could be social media tweets, things like that. They'll know, you will know that when they click through, they'll go to a certain experience rather than just send them to your homepage and then hope that they find what they were looking for. You don't want to tweet about a great new product, send them to your homepage, and then, well, I was looking for that product. Now where is it? Now I have to navigate and find it. Click, close. Yep. Capture data through sign-up forms. We're starting to get into some of the more advanced type stuff, but it's not so advanced. I mean, this is pretty run-of-the-mill stuff for a lot of the companies that are trying to achieve success on social media. To be able to monitor what campaigns are working, what links are working, what content is working, that allows them to be more successful in a greater period of time. So if you have sign-up forms, you want to make the forms as easy as possible, totally foolproof, and not super long where you're asking for too much information. Just get the basics. If they're signing up for an email, get their email address. And you can get the rest later after you convert them with great emails, and you can get them to give up your information when they make purchases. But you want your content to be trustworthy as well. One of the underlying currents, I think, of a lot of social media is that people are trying to figure out if some of this stuff is for real, if some of these people are for real. By following someone, you're sort of voting for them. You know, you're sort of vouching for them, and you want people to vouch for you, to vote for you, to recommend you, whether it's by following you or plus oneing your stuff or sharing, you know, with their followers, their trusted people.
Liking your posts, sharing, etc.
Exactly. So, you know, in the end, maintain some consistency between your social channels and your website. You'll find that it's much easier to make some of these conversions to show people that you have something from point A to point Z that makes total sense. Like here's an example here from HubSpot, which does wonderful internet marketing campaigns and a wonderful business as well. They were giving away templates, so content creation templates, and you can see this is on Twitter. It's a post with a link with an image attached, showing they've got ebook templates, infographic templates. I mean, really great stuff. And when you click through on that link that's in the tweet, it brings you to a landing page that is specifically for that. It doesn't bring you to HubSpot.com. Doesn't bring you to HubSpot.products or downloads. It brings you to a specific URL, and if you look very closely, you can see some UTM code, which I'm not going to talk about in this because we'd be here for hours. But it brings you to the content creation templates landing page. You can see the imagery is the same, and the text is the same, and they also have a very easy to see and fill out form over on the right, where they're asking for some, you know, pretty basic information. So it's an example of using social media to drive people to your site, to a great landing page, and giving value. You know, keep in mind that they're giving away something of value as well. It's you know, it's a real uphill battle if you think that you're going to be able to tweet something that says, check out this awesome product, and you're not giving away anything. I mean, that's pure marketing. So how about, you know, here's some downloadable assets. Here's something that we know our audience specifically will appreciate and use, and they'll share it with other like-minded potential customers.
Yeah. And then they'll be like, hey, look what I got from HubSpot. And then the cycle continues.
The cycle continues, once again.
So now monitoring success via social media. Now, how do you define success on social media? It's a really tough category just to define on its own. So here are a few bullet points that should help with that. Now, it's not all about followers. It's quality over quantity, quality over quantity. Now, we can't stress that enough. It's about what you give to the community. It's about what you give to your followers. It's about what you are enticing people to click on, for like the HubSpot example, for example. Now, your efforts should map out your goals, and your metrics should measure success. Now, after you've received those metrics, obviously evaluate, adjust, and repeat. So if somebody doesn't like your cupcake recipe blog post because they have a gluten allergy, then maybe the next blog post makes some gluten-free cupcakes.
You know, social media is a lot like SEO in the way that this is not a quick strategy. This is something where you have to do a lot of homework and you have to do a lot of research and understand. You have to understand the people that are out there, and that following will build organically based on what you share. And only by monitoring the success of the things you're doing will you be able to effectively build it.
Yeah, absolutely. So social media monitoring tools, website blog content, for example. You have Google Analytics, referrals, obviously. Back to that HubSpot example, you tweet something with relevant information, then you click on it, follow back, and you're able to measure where people are coming from. Are they coming from Twitter? Are they coming from Facebook? Are they coming from Pinterest? Who is more active in which community, and how are they reaching you? Then social sharing, tweeted blog posts, favorited pages, plus ones, pens, etc. That's the same, pretty much the same thing as I was talking about earlier. If someone's liking your blog post on cupcakes. They'll retweet it, so on and so forth. Now, social media stats, platform dashboards, Facebook pages, for example, engagement platforms like Hootsuite, Buffer, Sprout Social, Brand24, Social Bro, which is largely Twitter, Mention, and much, much more.
Yeah, there's lots of them. There are a lot of monitoring tools that are out there now that, you know, a lot of them, they kind of do similar things. And when you're evaluating them, like if you're considering them and you say, you know, I need a monitoring tool and I got all these different choices, it's really important to dig into what they offer.
Yeah.
And again, go back to your goals. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Because if you can't monitor key metrics of success, you won't know if you're hitting those goals. So some of these platforms, more than others, may speak to the things that you're trying to do. And sometimes it's a matter of just trying something out and seeing if it works.
It's important to be able to gauge as well, to be able to measure those metrics and see if your efforts are working. Because if you are using, like you're an individual and you're using a platform like Hootsuite or an engagement platform like Hootsuite, which is excellent, but if you aren't looking at where people are coming from, how they're accessing your website, you might be stretching yourself too thin. People might not be on Facebook and looking at your content. People might not be on YouTube and looking at your content. So you might be stretching yourself too thin. It's important to first get on there, get chatting, and then engage and see what works best for you.
And specifically for Facebook, you know, we have an example of what one of those dashboards looks like. This is for the Smells Like Bacon page, not a real company, but something that we set up as a tribute to the Smells Like Bacon page, and you know it gets plenty of hits and likes and stuff. But it's interesting to see what is on there because this dashboard panel is going to look completely different from a dashboard panel on on another network or monitoring service. So you are, in this case, you're limited to what information they're willing to give you, and trying to figure out the best way you can filter the information to understand, are we achieving something? Are we, how are we doing exactly? So kind of rounding up, the discussion, getting back to the goals that we talked about, the 4 different types of goals. There's communication, like you just said, start using the platforms. Get in there, jump in there. Establish who you are. Let people know who you are and what you're going to be talking about and sharing and commenting on and listen. Above all, I mean, I don't know how many, I probably haven't said it enough here, but man, one of the keys to social media success is to listen. Social media is not marketing, and you have to listen to what people are saying. When we say monitoring things, that's one way of listening, but actually hearing what people are saying about you and kind of gaining an understanding of what that sentiment is about you or your products and services or the people, your company, whatever, the things that you're doing. Listen to what they're saying and you gain a better understanding of maybe what your reputation is out there. Is it positive, negative, a little mixed? Is there something you have to address? Those are the things you have to consider. Part of that is tied to your influence. So what sort of influence or reputation do you have? Who are the top players in your industry? Understand which keywords and hashtags are important, and understand how to track them. Be informative and helpful, especially in a support context.
Yeah, most definitely.
Competitive goals, identify the needs of those that you're targeting. Understand what they want, and then figure out how you can deliver it to them. And not just one way, but many different ways, many different types of content. Create something that's helpful, and then monitor that competition and figure out a way to outdo them. It's just because they might have more money doesn't mean that their social media is better than yours, especially if you're a small business and you're trying to go up against someone else. Being helpful, I mean, that's something that can really be the great equalizer.
Definitely.
And business goals, monitor and track those results. Understand if you're making a difference, not just in people's lives out there, but if you're spinning your wheels. I mean, is this what you should be doing? Should you be doing things a different way, creating different types of content? What works and what doesn't? Don't just stick to one thing and just, set it and forget it. You have to be watching what's going on.
Yeah.
So if we can leave some leave everyone with some goals for the future.
Some food for thought.
What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. For individuals, that would be freelancers or just individual or small, which platforms haven't you tried? Which platforms have you been ignoring? Which topics and types of content excite you? Now, share an opinion, advice, and jump into the conversation and make a point to provide value and help.
And if you
Most
notice,
importantly.
if you notice that some of those terms are in all caps, it's because they're important.
Yeah.
Especially this third one here. What topics and types of content excite you?
Mm-hmm.
If you have the responsibility of doing social media, and you view it that way as a responsibility, as a job, or something like that, I hope that you care about the stuff that you're putting out there. It's much easier when you're an individual and you can talk about whatever you want. You can create anything you want, whatever strikes your fancy, bam, just put it out there and see what kind of response it gets. Now, you might see that when we go from one slide to the next, these, from the individuals to the businesses, the more business-related goals, they're actually kind of the same, right? What platforms haven't you tried? Which platforms have you been ignoring? Like if you have a presence on Facebook, but you kind of haven't posted in 9 months, maybe you want to do something about that. Which topics and types of content excite you and excite your customers? Share an opinion. Share some of that expert opinion. If you're so smart and you're a business actually selling your expertise or your products and services, you must be pretty good at it. So share that advice. Jump into conversations and be helpful. And make a point, again, provide value and help. I think those are the thoughts. Those are the things that we want to leave people with this presentation. And I think that probably have a few questions. Yes, we've got Chris Zabriskie over here helping us out with the monitoring the questions. Let's see. Is there any reason, and Corey asked this. Thank you for watching, everyone, by the way, before we run right into this. Corey asks, is there any reason that I shouldn't use a tool like Buffer to post to social media?
I wouldn't think so.
I think that I'll tell you this. The only negative thing I've really heard about Buffer is that people think that, well, social media is supposed to be spontaneous, right? It's supposed to, when you have something to say, then share it. If you're using Buffer, it's like, it's not as, I don't know, true to the social media
It's not a spontaneous
vibe. I don't know. I mean, I've tried Buffer because I had some stuff that I wanted to put out there, but I didn't want to put 6 tweets at the same time.
Yeah.
It gets a little obnoxious if you've got that in your timeline, and all of a sudden, bam, you get 6 things. So Buffer can be useful.
Yeah, Buffer can definitely be useful. Same with the TweetDeck, same with Hootsuite. Being able to schedule what you post is definitely useful. Because as Dan said, it can get really annoying and obnoxious to your followers if you have 6 or 7 tweets that either are related to the exact same content or they're different blog posts, but a lot of people will consider that spam. So it's good to at least look at things that can enable you to be spontaneous, but at the same time not spam people.
So another question, Charles asks, is social media something that can help your company's SEO? I've been doing a lot of research on SEO. It's like SEO is like the most dense subject ever. It's because I'm writing a new course on it. So I hope in the next couple months, maybe March or April, we'll have a new SEO course out. It's a little exclusive. All right, so social media platforms, what they usually do is they generally add a no-follow onto any links that you post. Excuse me, as my screensaver went on. Generally, social media platforms add a no-follow to any links that you post or that lead back to your site. So in that sense, maybe technically it doesn't benefit SEO in that way, but it depends on how you define SEO, because if you define it as just the links and stuff that is on your site and how it all adds up in the algorithm to the search results and everything, it might. It's one of those like Google secret recipe questions that no one really knows the answer to. But I think the general consensus is that social media is good. It is a benefit for SEO because I believe that social has something to do with the algorithm, but also It brings in more referrals to your site. So the more referrals that your site has, it's a benefit. So I think in the long run, yes. And so whether it's linking back to your site from social media, yes, do that. Linking to landing pages, yes, do that, even though maybe landing pages may not, you may do a no index on those. If you're big into SEO, then you'll understand. If not, wait for my course. But yeah, so short answer, yeah, I think so. Yes, I think it does help. All right, so a few people asked if Google Plus numbers are skewed. We talked about like 500 million people are on Google Plus. Are they skewed because Google's pushing all of it into Gmail and YouTube? And yeah, I mean, if you read any articles on the data about the people who are actually using Google Plus, I forget exactly what it was, but I think that the average Google Plus user in the last month used it for 8 minutes or something. That was like one of the most recent articles I saw. Whereas Facebook, people are on it for hours, right, or days, right? People are actually on that.
They check it when they're bored. They check it when they do everything.
But Google Plus is one of those things where it's a real enigma, right? Because it has become more connected to, especially YouTube. Now that YouTube belongs to Google, and a lot of the comments now on YouTube videos are directly connected to your Google Plus profile if you're logged in and you're watching stuff. So, man, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think they are inflated. But because it's Google, I also think you can't ignore it, not yet. Not until we've ruled it out, not until we've called the time of death on it.
Yeah.
Some people think it'll go like the way like Google Wave, kind of, oh yeah, it's huge, and then it cropped out.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Don't forget about it. That's what I say. Are there any tools that monitor multiple social media sites, especially for ROI? Well,
I would say Hootsuite, falling back on that, that's a great tool to use to monitor multiple social media platforms. In addition to Google+, it'll also help you with Facebook and Twitter and so on and so forth. Even just heading to their main page, their home page, will show you how many social media platforms it will monitor. Now, as far as anything else, I'm not 100% sure. I know that primarily for Treehouse we use Hootsuite. Are you familiar with any offhand?
Let's see. No, I mean, Hootsuite is the one that I would recommend as well, especially to individuals, like just to get an idea of what some of the monitoring tools look like and what you can do with them. It's fairly robust. I mean, you can log on as an individual and just connect your Twitter account, and just like I did with my feedback about my courses, just did some searches to see what comes up. And I'll tell you, if you have some experience using a tool like Hootsuite or something else like that, even the free version of it, it's nothing but a benefit. Because even if you're not using it every single day, but you check in like once a week or something like that to monitor your websites, maybe you'd want to monitor your client websites if you're a web designer or developer. It's something that's helpful to, whether you would put it on a resume or you'd mention it at a job interview or something where you're trying to get a job, and yes, you can do, yes, you know how to use social media platforms. Who doesn't? But I also know how to monitor them. I'm familiar with Hootsuite, or I understand, if you know Google Analytics as well, and you dig into not just the referrals, but dig into some of the campaign tracking. And Google Analytics is a whole other Megillah. But that's another thing, another spot where you can gain an edge over other people, because knowing how to use social media is like, kids are growing up understanding how to use that now, but understanding how to monitor it and to know if your stuff is successful, your campaigns, that's something that's a great skill to have.
Definitely.
So I think we've covered a lot in our hour here. Yeah. And we want to encourage everyone, if you're new to Treehouse, once again, to come visit us at teamtreehouse.com and learn more about the ways that you can learn how to do web design and do web development, build apps, maybe start your own business, and understand the social media stuff and everything
Social media
connected
monster.
to it.
Woo.
But of course, you can find us, speaking of social media, you can find Elizabeth at
The Shouting Fox.
The Shouting Fox. And I'm at Dan Gorgon on Twitter. And we're on many platforms as well, because we're big in social media,
Yep.
aren't we?
Yes, we are.
All right. Well, thank you for watching, and thank you for visiting us here on YouTube. We'll talk to you later.